Hello and welcome to this video, where for the very first time ever I decided to make a list of my favorite albums of the year 2024. I'm a massive music lover and a record collector from Brussels, and I've always wanted to make such a list for a very long time. 2024 was a very good year for music, jam-packed with exciting new releases throughout the whole year. So stick around to see which albums made my cut. My list features some big names, at least one hidden gem of an artist that you've never heard before, and some unexpected picks that might truly surprise you. Please like and subscribe if you like what you see in this video. It would truly help me create a lot more content like this in the future. With that out of the way, let's get into the countdown, starting with number 10. At number 10, it's Beth Gibbons with Lives Outgrown. Coming 22 years after its predecessor, this is a unique and unexpected record that oozes with melancholy and deeply pensive lyrics. Beth Gibbons, best known as the evocative voice of the iconic band Portishead, finally made her long-awaited comeback last year with her album Lives Outgrown. I gotta say, I was never the biggest Portishead fan back in the day, because when they broke through with their debut album Dummy, I was mostly into metal and Britpop, listening to bands like Slayer, Metallica, Suede, Pulp, Blur, and so on. But over time, I've come to deeply appreciate and admire Beth's talent as a vocalist and a songwriter. Her ability to convey raw emotions through her voice is unparalleled, and this album is a true testament to her unique artistry. Lives Outgrown has been a long time coming, 22 years to be exact, since her first solo outing with the album Out of Season. While that album had its moments of brilliance, Lives Outgrown here feels a lot more complete and cohesive as a whole. It's a fully immersive listening experience, showcasing sparse sonic textures and unique instrumentations. This record doesn't lean towards commercial appeal or mainstream sensibilities, and that's precisely what makes it even more special for me. Every track is steeped in a dark, melancholic atmosphere that paradoxically feels uplifting and shimmers with hope. Beth's growth as a songwriter and a lyricist shone bright here. This is the work of an artist whose life experiences inform every note that she's singing here. It's a profoundly mature album that could only come from someone standing at the threshold of her 60s. Here's hoping that we don't have to wait another 2 decades for the follow-up of this remarkable gem. At number 9, it's Jack White with No Name. This is one of the very best records that the White Stripes never released. Melodic, raw, and punchy tunes from start to finish. I have a confession to make. I was a big White Stripes fan back in the day and got everything that they released during that short but impactful decade-long career. However, ever since they disbanded, I never really followed Jack White's solo journey, apart from his work with the supergroup The Dead Weather, which I absolutely loved. The buzz surrounding this album finally convinced me to give it a listen, and yeah, the hype was well deserved. To be honest, if you told me that this was a brand new White Stripes album, I wouldn't have doubted you for a second. The musical style here is typically Jack White's, the same raw electrifying energy that made the White Stripes a big name during the noughties. And if anything, it goes on to reinforce the idea that Jack White was the White Stripes. Sorry, Mag. What's truly impressive here is the overall quality of the album. Apart from that one song that I find a bit grating, there's not a single dud or filler in the mix. Production-wise, it's what you'd come to expect from Jack. It's that melodic, gritty, raw guitar tones paired with minimal production. It's that stripped-back, unpolished charm that gives this music its unique retro quality. Jack's guitar tones cut through everything like a blade here, mixed with his unmistakable trademark raw vocals. Listening to this album was like stepping into a time machine and going back to the early 2000s, and reminding me exactly why I fell in love with the White Stripes music in the first place. It's a nostalgic and an invigorating experience, and I'm thrilled to see that Jack White's talents are still as electrifying as ever. Number 8, it's Opeth with The Last Will and Testament. A slightly mixed bag of an album this is, especially when you consider the hype leading up to its release. Yeah, the girls are back, but does that make the album any better? I first got into Opeth in the early 2000s with the album Damnation. As a die-hard prog rock fan, I was completely captivated by the lush, melancholic instrumentations on that album. Imagine my surprise when I later found out that they are primarily a death metal band renowned for their heavier, more aggressive sound. Fast forward a few decades and Opeth are one of my favorite bands of all time. A prog metal powerhouse with a unique ability to blend crushingly heavy moments with beautifully delicate softer passages. I'm even one of those fans who still enjoys Heritage. Sure, it was a transitional album, but a great one at that. Tracks like Folklore and Heritage remain two of the finest in their entire discography in my opinion. Before diving into Lost Will and Testament, I have to mention that its predecessor, In Cuda Venenum, is probably my favorite Opeth album of all time at this point. A true masterpiece from start to finish. Naturally, the hype surrounding this album, particularly the return of Michael's growls, got me both excited and apprehensive. Would bringing back the growls really make the music any better? After several listens, I was left feeling a bit disappointed and puzzled, confused by the overwhelming praise this album was receiving. Don't get me wrong, it's still a very good album, it's just too linear and monotone for my taste. What I love most about Opeth is their ability to create music with dynamic ebbs and flows, where intricate build-ups lead to satisfying payoffs. That sense of contrast is what made their progressive side so captivating for me. Unfortunately, this album lacks most of that. The mood is consistently dark and heavy with very few dynamic instrumental shifts. And it's ultimately why The Lost Will and Testament lands at number 8 on my list. It's a solid record, it just doesn't capture the magic of their earlier, more dynamic releases. And at number 7, it's London Grammar with The Greatest Love. A quality release that builds on their established sound while expanding their sonic palette ever so slightly with some more electronic embellishments here and there. Let me just say that I'm a massive London Grammar fan. From the moment I heard their debut album that came out in 2013, I was captivated by Hannah Reid's mesmerizing voice and the haunting atmospheric music that the band was offering. So naturally I was following their career very closely, and I was very curious to see how their sound is going to evolve with time. While subsequent albums show some growth, this new release here feels like the most significant step forward. Even the album art hints at a shift in tone. It's warmer and more inviting than the previous ones. And this warmth carries through throughout the whole album, both musically and lyrically. Speaking of lyrics, I would say this is their most personal album yet. Take the second track for example, on which Hannah doesn't hold back from showing her disdain for another woman so openly and so directly that she called the song Fake Bitch. Musically there's a lot more electronics here, and plenty of pulsating beats at the core of every song. They give the album a sleek, polished sound with a commercial edge, while still maintaining the band's signature elegance. However, I couldn't help but feel that the album left me wanting more. At just 40 minutes long, it feels a bit too short, and it leans a bit too much towards mainstream pop trends, while their earlier works had a lot more left field vibe to them. That said, The Greatest Love shows a bold evolution for London Grammar. It shows a willingness to evolve and to embrace new directions. There's still so much to admire about this album, and I can't wait to see what they do next. And at number 6, it's Eivor with N. The most unique release and entry on this list. There's so much to love about this record, especially after having seen her perform it live entirely. I was completely blown away by the sheer talents of Eivor when I first discovered her almost a decade ago, thanks to an article in a magazine about her album sold back then. From the very first listen, I was captivated by her amazing vocals, touching lyrics, and impeccable songwriting. What baffled me most was how such a gifted and talented artist could remain so long under the radar. By that point, Eivor had several albums under her belt, most of which were sung in her native Faroese language. She quickly became the artist I couldn't stop recommending to fellow music lovers around me. Eivor is incredibly prolific. I absolutely adored the album she put out during the pandemic, and I wasn't expecting her to drop something new this soon. But she surprised us again. Her last record, N, is an experimental masterpiece. It explores a wide range of musical styles, from opera to folk to electronica, and even touches of Scandi pop, all while keeping her immaculate voice at the center of every track. It's an adventurous effort that further showcases her versatility. I was lucky enough to see her perform live here in Brussels last year, and that experience was nothing short of transcendent. In fact, you can see some snippets of that performance on my YouTube channel here. Loving Eivor's music on record is one thing, but witnessing her immense talents in a live setting is something completely different. Her stage presence, her vocal prowess, and the raw emotions she brings to her performances is almost spiritual. Not to mention she plays multiple instruments, including the guitar and several Scandinavian drums and percussions. The only reason why N isn't higher on my list is because it's very much a mood record. And when I'm in the right mood and headspace, I let it play on repeat for hours, completely immersing myself in its sonic beauty. Then I set it aside till the mood strikes again. The fact that the whole album is sung in her native Faroese language makes it even more special for me. There's an authenticity and an otherworldly quality to it. Eivor's voice is a rare gift, sitting somewhere between Kate Bush and Lisa Gerrard from That Can Dance. N is yet another reminder of her brilliance, and I can't wait to see what she does next. And at number 5, it's Gossip with Real Power, the most heartwarming comeback story of the year for me. I never expected them to come back after such a long hiatus, but they did come back with a bang. I've been a Gossip fan ever since Standing in the Way of Control was a hit in 2006. I even remember seeing them play live at a music festival here in Belgium in 2007. I was a casual fan back then, and I had no idea that almost 20 years down the line, I'll be a massive fan of the band and I'll be collecting everything that they've ever released. I was naturally disappointed when they went on hiatus during the last decade, but Beth Ditto's first debut album, Fake Sugar, that was released in 2017, filled the gap left by the lack of any new Gossip music. Fake Sugar is a phenomenal record, chock full of killer tunes from start to finish. I even got to see her perform it live back in the day. And it was a truly unforgettable experience. Beth is such an incredible performer, and the pure energy she brings to her live shows is unmatched. I was over the moon when I heard last year that Gossip had reunited to play a few festivals. And now with the release of this new album, they've delivered something truly special. From the moment I hit play, I fell in love with these tunes. Each song brings catchy melodies, crisp instrumentations, and Beth's stunning vocals that all come together and blend so effortlessly. Nothing feels forced or overproduced here, it's pure authentic Gossip music at its best. The production and the mixing are impeccable too, which comes as no surprise since the legendary Rick Rubin is behind the controls here. This album easily stands alongside the very best that they've ever released, a triumphant return that reminds us why Gossip is one of the very best bands ever to blend electropop with rock. And at number 4, it's the Pet Shop Boys with Nonetheless, an impressive new album that is jam-packed with killer tunes without a hint of a filler. The consistency of this record is truly impressive. I have to admit, I've always enjoyed the Pet Shop Boys music ever since I discovered them in the 90s as a teen with the hit song Go West, though I wouldn't have called myself a diehard fan back in the day. It wasn't until the release of the Further Listening reissues that I finally decided to dive deeper into the discography and realize the sheer brilliance of Chris and Neil, who've been creating excellent music with remarkable consistency for decades. From the very first listen, Nonetheless manages to strike a perfect balance between familiarity and innovation. It feels refreshingly modern while staying true to the signature style that defines the Pet Shop Boys. A feat that's easier said than done. The quality and the consistency of this album is undeniable, with each track seamlessly flowing into the next one. I got the chance to fully immerse myself thanks to the newly released deluxe edition that includes a generous collection of bonus songs and remixes. This additional content only enhances the album, offering greater depth and a richer experience to an already outstanding record. But that said, I can't help but voice my frustrations with the practice of releasing deluxe editions just a few months after the original standard release. It feels so unfair to fans who invested in the album and the artist early on. Still, despite this annoyance, Nonetheless stands as one of the strongest albums in the Pet Shop Boys' illustrious career. At this stage in their journey, it's an incredible achievement, truly a masterclass in crafting timeless pop tunes. And at number 3 is The Last Dinner Party with Prelude to Ecstasy, one of the greatest debut albums of all time, showcasing a remarkably mature sound that seamlessly fuses their influences into something fresh and cohesive. This album first caught my attention thanks to all the hype surrounding its release earlier in the year. However, I set it aside for a few months before I finally decided to dive into it at the end of the year. And I'm so glad that I waited, because by the time I got to it, there was a brand new deluxe edition that was out, offering so much more than just the standard one. This deluxe edition boasts an impressive 9 additional tracks, including some live recordings and a couple of cover songs that make it an even more rewarding listening experience. As for the main sound of this album, the influences are quite clear. Artists like ABBA, Kate Bush, and Marina and the Diamonds all come to mind. Yet all these inspirations are seamlessly blended together to create a fresh musical identity that's unique to the Lost in a Party. There's an undeniable feminine energy radiating throughout the whole album, paired with infectious melodies, meaningful lyrics that are surprisingly sophisticated and mature for a debut album. The band's maturity and artistry are evident throughout, making this an incredibly strong first outing. I can't stress enough how every song on here is incredibly well written and performed. They all sound like classics just waiting to happen. Picking some key tracks for this record was a real challenge for me. And for all those reasons, this was an easy top 3 pick for me. It's exciting to think where they'll go from here, because they've put up an exceptionally high bar for themselves. I can't wait to see what's next for the Lost in a Party.
And at number 2, it's Billie Eilish with Hit Me Hard and Soft. An impressive third album that pushes boundaries with bold experimentations and surpasses its predecessor in every way. A true testament to artistic growth for Billie and her brother Phineas.
I've been a Billie Eilish fan ever since she burst onto the scene a few years ago, bringing something completely fresh and new both musically and vocally. I don't ever recall being so captivated by someone's soft vocal stylings mixed with some innovative music production and instrumentation. It was like ASMR vocals seamlessly interwoven into some of the catchiest songs that I've ever heard. Fast forward a few years and a couple of albums, and she's back again demanding respect and attention with this outstanding release. There's a unique sense of freedom in the songwriting here. It's melancholic yet uplifting. It feels unique and fresh, yet very familiar if you're a Billie Eilish fan, striking an emotional balance that feels both intimate and universal. Another standout quality of this album is its remarkable coherence. Each song flows seamlessly into the next one, creating an immersive listening experience from start to finish. I absolutely love the added electronic flourishes all over the album, which demonstrate a growing maturity and a bold willingness to expand her sonic universe. Billie and her brother Phineas seem to evolve with every release, so I'm super curious to see where they go from here and how the next record is going to sound like.
And at number 1, it's Moby with Always Centered at Night. A remarkably cohesive album, even with its diverse lineup of guest vocalists. This is Moby at his very best as a songwriter.
I stumbled upon this album completely by chance. There was not much hype or buzz around it when it was released, so I was really surprised to find out that Moby had a new album out. So I got it and played it, and I was completely blown away by the sheer quality of this album from the very first listen. And as a collaborative album with tons of guest vocalists from all over the globe, this album flows so smoothly and so effortlessly and has a very trip-hoppy vibe that harks back to that genre and the golden age it was in the 90s. It's been 25 years since Moby released his landmark album Play that propelled him to the forefront of the music scene and made him a household name. And while since he's released so many good albums, this just might be my favorite of the whole bunch. It's most definitely one of his finest work ever, and even though it didn't achieve the commercial success that it deserves, that's what makes it an even more special album for me. Always Centered at Night feels like a celebration of artistry for its own sake, prioritizing quality and authenticity over record sales. And for that alone, Moby deserves a big kudos from me. There's so much to love about this record. It's the kind of album that you put late at night and you let it play for a couple of hours non-stop. It's a mood album, it's a vibe, and it was an easy pick for me as my favorite album of the year. So this was my list of favorite records of 2024, but how about you and your favorite albums? Please share them in the comments below because I'm always looking forward to discovering some new albums and records. Thanks a lot if you made it this far, and please consider subscribing if you like this video. This is all for now. Next I'll be making a video about my favorite board games from last year. Till then, cheers!